Chapter 11. Plan B. The voices are back. These ones are different. New voices rattling through the dark, curiously coming to look.
That's disgusting. What's wrong with him? I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
They don't touch us. Of course, they never do. The cats always push us away when we reach out, with rods, mechanical arms, cold stares and words that lack understanding. We are used to it. The cats are afraid. They fear us, my brothers and sisters. Call us flesh, say we are nothing, say we're disgusting. Rats in the dark, all of us, in pain, no other purpose but to cure others. That is good, in a way, to know that we get to help. But why will no one help us? And it hurts so much, burns, bleeds, freezes. We try not to notice, try to forget, so that the pain might go away. But it won't. It doesn't. It is always there, reminding us, making us sick, ache, choke, shiver. Just us, just flesh. It's so small in here, so green, cold. The voices still won't let us out. Won't let us see outside. We are born in the dark and we die in the dark. Alone. Always alone. For that is why we are here, isn't it? But how much longer? And which one of us? Which one will be the last? The voices are fading again. Please! We want to scream after them. Help us! But we can't. The cats kill those who speak. We can smell it afterwards. They think we are stupid, that we don't feel anything. Oh, but we do. We do. The doctor woke, painfully. Well, he supposed in a way he should be grateful. Time Lords and knockout drugs didn't mix, quickly metabolized by superior biology. Oof, that perfume had a bit of a kick though. Its noxious scent lingered in his nostrils, his limbs felt like sandbags, and he was currently nursing the most massive migraine. Or was that just the bump on the side of his head? Still shaking off the sluggish dregs of unconsciousness, the doctor opened his eyes and choked back a gasp. The entire world was green. Nothing but dirty green walls and sickly green light. Everything around him smelling heavily of death. Cold, hard metal dug into the doctor's back as he twisted his throbbing head left, then right, taking in his cramped surroundings. An instant later, he knew exactly where he was. Drugged. He'd been drugged. Not only that, Rose had drugged him, waited patiently for her moment to strike, given him a faceful of that poisonous spray she'd been keeping stashed in a clever place, and then stuffed him inside one of the containment pods, adding one more body to the massive petri dish repository that was this hospital's intensive care. The doctor pulled his arms and legs up to his chest, both hearts hammering. The green cells suddenly felt a lot smaller now that he was actually sitting inside it. There was barely even enough room to accommodate his skinny frame. Automatically, he fumbled in his pockets for the sonic screwdriver. Gone! Someone must have nicked it. The doctor looked around for a latch, weak hinges, exposed wires, anything, but could see no way out. He was sealed in. Where was Rose? How much time had passed since she'd overpowered him? He decided to give shouting a try, as loudly as he dared, fighting the urge to bang on the glass. "Let me out! Let me out!" His voice carried a short way outside the green-tinted window that was the door to his prison. No answer. The doctor tried again, louder this time. "Let me out! Get me out of here!" Still no answer. Nothing. Just silence, as deep and dead and awful as the grave. But then, to his left, footsteps. The doctor's heart leapt when he saw Rose's familiar shape looming back into view on the other side of the glass, only to sink again as her face twisted itself into a cruel smile. "Oh, look," she cooed. "Sleeping Beauty stirs. Aren't you lucky there was a spare? Standing room only." "Cassandra!" He spat the name out like blood. "What have you done to her?" "Well, nothing too drastic. Suppressed the intellect, altered the brain chemistry, and made room for a little more me. It was surprisingly easy to lure her away. Just a couple of whimpers from my sweet pet Chip, and she was mine for the taking." There was a long, contented sigh from outside the cell. "I knew that someday I would find someone worthy of sharing in my beautiful essence. Flatness is overrated, if you ask me. These days, I'm all about hips and hair." "You've stolen Rose's body," the doctor snarled. Rose, or Cassandra as she was now calling herself, glowered malevolently at him through the murky glass. "Over the years, I've thought of 1,000 ways to kill you, Doctor," she hissed, her posh voice low and ugly with hatred. "And now that's exactly what I've got, 1,000 diseases. Little Chip and I had a quick snoop round this place while you were dozing. Did you know they pump the patients with a top-up every 10 minutes? You've got about 3 minutes left. Make that 3 minutes and 27 seconds. Enjoy." And with a mocking tap to Rose's wristwatch, Cassandra made to walk away. 3 minutes 26, 25. "No, wait!" The doctor's gaze skipped once more around the narrow green booth he was trapped in. Part of him mused that it really felt more like a casket or a tomb, and he tried to avoid touching any of the sides with his bare skin. But it wasn't like it would make much difference in 3 minutes and 20 seconds. His mind was racing with fear, but not for himself. "Just let Rose go, Cassandra." It was a plea, one last bearded reasoning with her, yet the doctor's voice was also strained with anger. Mild claustrophobia and a righteous fury he was learning this new body constantly had bubbling under the surface were both blending together and grating at the nerves. 3 minutes 15 seconds. Cassandra laughed, a high, horrid, vicious sound that flayed at the doctor like a whip hearing it from Rose's mouth. "Oh, I will," she jeered, still feeling rather vindictive toward the blonde body she was occupying as she leaned it against the cell door, taking one more moment to gloat. "As soon as I find someone younger and less common, then I'll junk her with the waist. Now hush-a-bye. It's showtime." And with a last sarcastic wave, Rose's shadow stepped away from the booth and disappeared from view. 3 minutes 10, 9. Chip was glad to be back at the mistress's side. It was nice of her to make him feel needed. He very much doubted he'd do anything at all if she wasn't around to command him. He'd come running just as she'd asked, the moment he'd heard the alarm go off. Run, 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 through the hospital passageways, quickly, softly, secretly, just like the mistress had ordered. He'd been worried for a moment, watching his lady take her first few mincing steps toward independence, that very soon his services would no longer be required. But Chip was still the mistress's humble servant. Yes, he was. Her secret weapon, she'd called him, right before she'd stepped into the lift and headed upstairs in her new Rose Tyler body. She'd even blown him a kiss. Chip couldn't remember too much of the day when the mistress had first made him, only that he'd been grown in one of her cellars, pale, patterned and eager, just waiting to be peeled. And it had been painful. He'd screamed in fright. But then the mistress had been there to calm him down, helping him to move, explaining how his arms and legs worked, which was highly generous of her, considering appendages were so very passé in her case. At least, until relatively recently. And now she was letting him be a part of her exciting new future. Lucky him. Lucky Chip. He only hoped his funny little body would be able to keep up with hers. It was feeling rather short of breath at the moment after manhandling the doctor's unconscious form into the capsule like a particularly troublesome ragdoll. And all on his own, too. The mistress hadn't lifted a finger to help. Chip wondered, briefly, if that was unfair, then decided it wasn't. The mistress was clever and busy and much too important, still adjusting to her new lodgings. Such undignified manual tasks were beneath her. Oh, but he had a lucky prize to show for it, for clutched in his little hands was the doctor's slender sonic device. Seeing him open all those door locks earlier had given the mistress ample reason to take it away, and if the original owner wasn't long for this world, then it was only right, surely, that Chip should have it instead. Now he lurked silently in the shadows a short ways behind, mimicking his lady's triumph as if it were his own. Her face might have been Rose Tyler's face, half lost in the chamber's green glow, but Chip thought she looked beautiful. Whichever body she wore, the mistress would always be beautiful, the most beautiful person in the world. As for the Rose girl herself, oh, she's nice and quiet up here now, the mistress had told him, tapping a knowing fingernail to the girl's head while she watched the doctor being lifted into the cell. Or at least she's not jostling around quite as much, noisy young thing. Perhaps she's just tired of the fight? That was good enough for Chip. He saw the mistress step away from the booth and give him a brief nod, which he returned in earnest. Ready. Their time was nearly at hand. He knew what he had to do. 3 minutes exactly. 2 minutes 59. 2 minutes 58. Inside his green cell, the doctor tried very hard not to panic. Lady Cassandra, still alive. How was that even possible? He'd watched her die on Platform 1. He'd made certain she was dead. Was what she'd done to Rose even reversible? It had taken far too long for him to see it, so wrapped up in exploring his shiny new self that he'd forgotten to keep an eye on her. Well, he'd had a lot on his mind, figuring out why the hospital's patients were healing so quickly, wondering where their little shop had gone. You know, important stuff. And it wasn't like he hadn't cottoned on eventually. 2 minutes 30. It had been her kindness in the end. Of course it had. Rose Tyler was deeply, impossibly kind, and when that kindness has already saved your life in 1,000 different ways, you're gonna notice when it's gone. The doctor felt a bitter taste in his mouth that had nothing to do with Cassandra's perfume. So that kissing stunt back in Ward 26, the smiles, the flirting, it had all been one great big lie. Rose's body but not her mind. Her femininity just one more weapon in the cruel arsenal Cassandra had deployed against him. 2 minutes 10 seconds. Then again, a stunt made it sound rather exciting. Almost as if for a moment, just for a moment, he'd allowed himself to believe it was really her. Superior biology. Yeah, right.
You asked to see me?
Cassandra wheeled round. Another voice had joined the fray. To her delight, the little cat novice had done exactly as she'd been told and gone to fetch two of her colleagues, who were now standing side by side just a few yards away, gloved paws clasped politely at their fronts.
Matron Casp, it's them,
she whispered to the eldest of the pair, pointing a shaking paw across the gantry.
That man and the girl.
Yes, thank you, Novice Haim,
the matron said firmly.
Sister Jad and I will take it from here. Now get back to work, tend to your patients.
The young novice hesitated, but perhaps part of her felt secretly relieved at being dismissed from any further responsibility for whatever might be about to happen next, because with an obedient bow of her head, she turned and slunk away into the gloom, her fading steps still nervously rushed. The matron had an inscrutable yellow gaze, which Rose's surface memories latched onto as familiar, but Cassandra didn't recognize. Glancing back at the doctor's booth, she checked the girl's watch again. 3 minutes, she'd said, and then she'd be shot of him. He had maybe 2 of those left.
Straight to the point, Whiskers,
she sneered, borrowed eyes drilling into the 2 nurses.
My name is the Lady Cassandra O'Brien Delta 17, though, as you can see, somewhat fallen from grace. Charmed, I'm sure. Anything we can do to help? I want money.
The nuns exchanged a look of what could only be described as professionally detached amusement. The one called Sister Jat in particular couldn't have appeared less interested, tapping calmly away at the screen of a small datapad she'd produced from the white folds of her robes. The matron, Casp, spoke in her stead.
The sisterhood is a charity. We don't give money, we only accept.
Cassandra coolly gritted her stolen teeth.
The humans across the water pay you a fortune.
She glared.
And that's exactly what I need.
1.5 minutes. The doctor tried not to breathe in too deeply as he listened to this Cassandra personification of Rose blackmailing the sisters. Of course it was money she was after, just like the last time. Why was he not surprised? There had to be a way out of here, and fast. Once the onslaught of viruses and pathogens were released into the chamber, he almost certainly wouldn't last very long, even with a brand new Time Lord immune system. He checked every centimetre of the walls, the door, even the ceiling, but of course there wasn't any opening mechanism on the inside. This pod was a prison, a cage. It was meant to trap. 1 minute 15. Cassandra was smiling sweetly as she laid out the terms.
A one-off payment would be fine. Shall we say 10 million credits? That's all I want. Something to return me to society. Oh, and perhaps yacht, she added as an afterthought. In return for which, I will tell the city nothing of your institutional murder.
How about that for an ultimatum? She let it cut through the green gloom like a knife, and was pleased to see it was even enough to make poker-faced Sister Jad look up from her device. Thanks to what she and the soon-to-be-late doctor had discovered down here, Cassandra knew she already had the juiciest leverage to barter with. Negotiations, at this point, were a mere formality. 1 minute. The doctor slammed himself into the cell door. It didn't budge. It was probably deadlocked, and even if it wasn't, there was simply no way for him to open it from this side. It had been designed with the explicit, definite purpose of keeping desperate people contained indefinitely. 55 seconds. Maybe if he kicked the door hard enough? There had to be some way to get out. 50 seconds. It was getting increasingly hard to maneuver himself into a position where he could kick the door without touching the sides. He was wasting time. 45 seconds. The door didn't budge, didn't crack. Nothing happened. 40 seconds. He was out of ideas.
Is that a deal?
Rose's foot tapped impatiently against the floor as Cassandra watched both nuns exchange glances again, fur prickling under their wimples. You can never really tell what a cat is thinking. These two might be a bit slow on the uptake, but they did appear to be considering her offer. 35 seconds. Her thoughts turned excitedly to the future. Oh, there was so much for her to look forward to. New horizons, new possibilities. Little Chip only had a day or two left in him at the most. With this body and the sizable funds she was certain to gain from a lofty establishment like this one, she could go into the city this very evening and celebrate, perhaps even find herself a new man. Purebred, someone with class, and decorative. The two of them could enjoy a nice dinner together, then cocktails on the waterfront. On him, of course. She would need to save her money for surgeries. Beggars can't be choosers, but she could still have some fun. There were quite a few of the organic pleasures she was determined to catch up on. Anyway, best not to give this body ideas. Not while there was company present. 30 seconds. Sister Jad was absorbed in her tablet again, so Matron Casp answered for them both and shattered all those lovely prospects with a single shake of her head. I'm afraid not. Cassandra's smile turned brittle. I'd really advise you to think about this. Oh, there's no need. The matron smiled back, her whiskers twitching in mock apology. I have to decline. For Bodley's sake! Cassandra could feel herself getting angry now. How obtuse can a pussycat get? I'll tell them, she threatened, raising Rose's voice to a shout. I will. I'll tell them everything, and you've no way of stopping me. I know your vows. You're forbidden to harm any living thing. And no matter what your definition of that is, as you can see, I'm completely alive. Yes. Casp's own voice was steady, but those yellow cat's eyes flashed in the darkness. This would seem to be a conundrum. Aha! So she had them on the back foot again. Perhaps now Sister Mary Moggy and her texting colleague might finally see some sense. Cassandra wished they'd hurry up about it. This new body of hers wasn't exactly flattering. Not yet, anyway. Maybe she would have a bit of surgery first, make herself more presentable. Cassandra hadn't forgotten the horrid slander Rose had given her 2 decades prior, telling her she'd rather die than go under the knife. Well, the foolish girl wouldn't have much say in the matter now, would she? Besides, she needed it badly. A quick nip-and-tuck job on the bimbo bits wouldn't go amiss. Throw in a jaw shave, smooth out the chin, try a facelift or two, though the rear bumper could stay perhaps. And once all that was... Except... Sister Jad handed her datapad over to Casp, and the matron began reading quietly from the screen. We were given full access to human medical records, and according to them, it appears that the Lady Cassandra O'Brien died nearly 23 years ago. A technicality, Cassandra snorted, but Rose's mouth had lost its sneer. But a technicality is all we need, Casp replied evenly, and took a single step forward. There is nothing to say the bodies must be grown for the synthesis to work. After all, flesh is flesh, and yours will do quite nicely. I'd like to see you try, said Cassandra shrilly, sounding almost hysterical now as she felt her advantage slipping away. You're not exactly nuns with guns, you're not even armed. Oops, that appeared to have touched a nerve. Sister Jat slipped her device back into her robes, and the matron took another step, lips curling sinisterly under her whiskers. Who needs arms? She hissed, holding up a gloved paw for display, when we have claws! With a flick of her wrist, sharp, dagger-like cat's claws, each several nasty inches long, ripped straight through the white fabric. Hackles raised, Jad unsheathed her own. 20 seconds. Cassandra went pale. Rose's stolen body shrank back as both sisters began advancing on her, hissing and growling, claws raised, ready to pounce. "15 seconds. The doctor was curled up on the floor of his tiny green cell, having long given up on not touching the sides. 12 seconds. At least when he regenerated, if he regenerated, he might be able to get out. It just wasn't fair. He'd already changed once, only recently. He'd had so little time. 11 seconds. His only hope was Cassandra or the cat nurses, and right now neither of them were any hope at all. 10 seconds. So he sat there. 9 seconds, rocking slightly. 8 seconds, trying not to think. 7 seconds, about what would happen next. 6 seconds, about what would happen to Rose. 5 seconds, about what would happen to him. 4 seconds, about what would happen to all those people. 3, who'd never seen the sun. 2, or lived a life free from pain and sickness. 1, he closed his eyes. 0. Then Rose's shoulders shrugged, and Cassandra tittered a nervous laugh. Well, nice try. Chip! She twirled suddenly to address the tattooed little man in the shadows behind her. Plan B. Her hunching pet toddled obediently out of hiding, the doctor's sonic instrument held out in front of him with scrawny fingers. Faced with this unaccounted new threat, the two sisters halted, their snarls and savagery fading as quickly as they had come. Chip pressed down hard with both thumbs. The stolen screwdriver let out a high-pitched wail. In a blare of sirens and a cascading hiss of escaped air pressure, all of the glowing green doors along the gantry unlatched themselves and swung open in a single sweep, forcing both cats to jump out of the way. And the hacking cries and groans of the sick, tormented bodies inside were suddenly exposed to the aseptic air. The prisoners were released. What have you done? The doctor shouted. That seemed to be the question of the day. Everyone was asking it, and nobody was answering. He'd come bolting out of his confinement, gasping as his lungs finally filled, and nearly gone straight over the railing in his rush. Now his head snapped round, seeing fear overtaking feline faces on one side and a familiar blonde shape storming away on the other. There was a sharp note of malice in Rose's voice as Cassandra turned back with a smile. Oh, nothing much. Gave the system a shot of adrenaline just to wake him up. All around, diseased human faces were swiveling towards them, paper-thin bodies slowly pushing themselves out of their green coffins, stumbling onto the gantry like zombies out of a horror film. They were just like the ones the Doctor and Cassandra had seen earlier, sunken features horribly deformed by boils and blisters and awful festering gashes, sometimes right down to the bone. Some were naked, their bodies even worse than their faces, covered in bloodied lesions, long wisps of hair dangling down across wet, rancid flesh. And they stank, their skins and smocks stained with the revolting byproducts of thousands upon thousands of cohabiting diseases. Only these ones were a lot more conscious than the others, lurching out, moaning, some falling to the floor, but the rest of them moving as one, arms out with their palms held up, as though imploring the living. Well, I think this is my cue, said Cassandra. See ya! And with a cheerful wave to the nuns, she was darting down the gantry with Chip on her heels, taking Rose with her. The Doctor wasn't about to let her get away. Don't touch them! He yelled back to the sisters as he took off after Cassandra. Whatever you do, don't touch! Then he was gone, and the escaped experiments had filled up the walkway behind him. A great, thickening mass of them, groaning and stinking. Their heads were bent low under the sheer weight of pushing through their sickness. Their bare feet dragged and shuffled across the metal floors. It was taking every effort of their atrophied muscles just to walk. But their eyes, their staring, weeping eyes, were locked firmly onto the cats. They were no longer merely flesh. They were alive and free. Free to infect the world. "You hurt us," croaked whispers went up from the crowd as the bodies slowly crept their way forward. "Please, save us. Save us. Sister Jad turned to Matron Casp. "I think we should withdraw," she said in the calmest whisper she could manage. "We listened," a hunched creature rasped nearby, in a slurred, broken voice he'd never used before. "We understood what you did to us as part of the machine. We know the machine." Ever so slightly, fear gave way to curiosity. "Fascinating," the matron murmured to her colleague, as the man seemingly lost interest in them and stumbled over to the wall with heavy, uncoordinated limbs. "It's actually constructing an argument. Those theories about the echo of life might have some validity after all. They're practically people." "The human race," Jad nodded sagely. "It will adapt. And we will end this." Summoning all of his strength, the wretch shoved his arm deep into a wall socket. Lightning shot through him as he used his own flesh to short out the circuitry inside. His whole body quaked with the crackle of energy, and the air was suddenly rank with a smell of burning skin. He was dead. Life had left him before he even fell. But the damage had been done. In an explosion of sparks, the ensuing short circuit blew out the lock of the nearest door. Then another, and another. Sister Jad's mouth fell open as she watched the power surge work its way through each door, every door, one by one, rippling up, down and along the levels like a great green line of toppling dominoes. Bang, bang, bang! Floor after floor, row upon row, the cells of intensive care blew open in a cacophony of snaps and sparks. And all the occupants inside were unleashed onto the gangways. 2 levels down, Rose's mouth let out a high-pitched scream. The cell locks were going off alongside Cassandra like a row of firecrackers. Bang, 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 showering her with sparks as she hurtled past. Chip clutched at her in a panic, but she was quick to shake him off, ducking and weaving her way down some stairs, along another walkway, then down more stairs, moving as fast as these stolen legs could carry her. Behind, she could hear the doctor gaining on them, about to catch up. Once again, Cassandra cursed herself for letting him out. It had seemed expedient at the time, when her extortion plans had gone south. The only downside was, there were now many other bodies out and about as well, walking, wailing, and carrying every possible disease. Oh dear, she really ought to have thought this through a little better. But she didn't dare look back, focusing instead on placing Rose's silly feet where she wanted them to go and avoid tripping herself up. This body was used to running, but Cassandra's mind wasn't accustomed to the strain of it. Dozens of alarms were shrieking all around her, accompanied by the thunderous sound of 1,000 heavy doors popping open all at once. What the blazes was going on? Please save us. Please save us. Matron Casp and Sister Jad peered over the gantry in absolute horror. The sick human wretch lay dead and smoking at their feet, but the situation had already escalated wildly out of control. The echoing cries from the hospital inmates had become 1,000 whispering pleas, getting exponentially louder until they rose up as one from the great dark pit of intensive care, all intoning the exact same thing. "Save us!" They're free, Jack was stuttering. "By the goddess Santori, the flesh is free!" "Stop the pain!" Both sisters whipped round. The escaped test subjects on their gantry, who had spent the last few moments shuffling around in confusion, were now limping unsteadily forwards again, coming straight for them. They were close now. Too close. The two cat nurses stumbled back. In her haste to retreat, Matron Casp trod on the hem of her robes, lost her balance, and toppled clumsily to the floor. She was lucky. The moaning carriers lurched straight past her, all of them now fixating on Sister Jat, who had mistakenly backed herself into a corner. She was spitting and growling as the infected bodies pressed ever nearer, swiping her claws in a desperate attempt to keep them at bay. It was no use. No use. Her white wimple came apart in their clutches, and in that moment, so did Jat herself. All the wisdom and resolve she'd so carefully cultivated over the years, her pride at first being welcomed into the sisterhood, the discipline with which she'd performed every one of her duties, even as Casp overtook her in both rank and reputation, abruptly dissolved into sobbing. "Matron!" she yowled. "Matron, help me!" But Casp could only watch, terror struck, as one of the moaning creatures reached out from the throng and brushed its rancid fingers up against her fellow sister's cheek. Just one touch. A ghastly wail broke past Jat's pointed teeth. Within seconds, her entire body was nothing but disease. Every disease imaginable, concentrated, aggressive, unstoppable. Sores, blisters and boils broke out in a vile cluster across her furry face, spreading fast under her robes. Overcome with convulsions, Jat sagged against the walkway in a gurgly, bubbling heap before finally succumbing to her many illnesses. Then she fell backwards over the railing into the abyss. Matron Casp didn't stick around to hear the splat. Struggling back to her feet, she slammed her paw over an emergency intercom and screamed down the line, "Quarantine the building!"